Hi friends, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. The case we're discussing today is one that, at its heart, began with something incredibly ordinary, a relationship coming to an end. But sometimes one person refuses to let go. So, as always, please join me in remembering Raymond and Martha Artzner. Raymond Leo Artsner was born on March 30th, 1920 in Cleveland, Ohio, to parents William and Rose. After graduating from Cathedral Latin School, Raymond found work at White Motors as a machinist. He worked there for several years before enlisting with the Navy in November of 1943. Raymond served through the end of World War II, and upon his return home, he met Martha Evelyn Clark. Martha was born on November 13th, 1923, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to parents Leo and Clara. Martha was known for her welcoming personality and her willingness to help others. While it is unclear when the couple married, it is believed they married sometime after Raymond's return in 1945. Based upon a U.S. census from 1950, the couple were listed as married and living together in Euclid, Ohio. Raymond returned to work at White Motor Company, where he eventually became a supervisor, while Martha stayed home to raise the couple's 5 children. The first child, James, was born in 1948, followed by Anita in 1952, Mary Ellen in 1954, Leo in 1958, and Rick in 1964. The couple lived in Ohio and raised their children until Raymond retired. After his retirement, they decided to move to Holiday, Florida in 1976. 4 years after they departed from Ohio, their daughter Anita decided to move her children to Holiday to be closer to her parents. Anita had separated from her husband Lawrence, whom she married in 1972. The couple shared 2 children, Christopher, born in 1973, and Jennifer, born in 1976. She lived in Holiday for several years before meeting the man who would change her family's lives forever. In 1982, Anita met Dominick Anthony Occhicone when he was working as a mason for C&G Masonry in Newport Richey, Florida. Dominic was born on August 29, 1945 in Carmel, New York. He was part of a third-generation Italian-American family that provided him with a stable upbringing. His father, also named Dominic, was a sanitation worker for the city who was known for his gentle demeanor and described as family-oriented. Although Dominic seemed to come from a loving home, he displayed troubling behavior at an early age. He had a hard time controlling his emotions, which often left him in fights as a teen. After high school, Dominic was drafted for the Vietnam War, but chose not to report. So he was court-martialed and imprisoned for 2 years in a military prison at Fort Dix in New Jersey. After completing his sentence, Dominic began a brief relationship with a woman. Unknown to him, she became pregnant with his daughter. After they broke up, the woman chose to keep Dominic out of their daughter's life. While Dominic was incarcerated, his parents retired and moved to Holiday, Florida. Since he no longer had a relationship and no job prospects, he decided to move as well. Shortly after he arrived in Florida, he met a woman named Sharon Doyle. They dated for a brief period before tying the knot on July 29, 1977. They welcomed a son together that they named after Dominic. Sadly, when Dominic III was only 2 years old, Sharon passed away due to cancer. After the loss of Sharon, Dominic started spending fewer nights at home and more time in the local bars. His son was placed under the care of relatives due to Dominic's increased drinking. It was during one of these nightly bar adventures that his path crossed with Anita's. The pair entered what would become a tumultuous 4-year relationship, rife with arguments and abuse. In the beginning, all was well. They moved in together with Anita's children and Dominic's son. He eventually proposed to her and she said yes. They even set a wedding date. But per Anita, his alcoholism became the center of many arguments. Throughout their relationship, both Dominic and Anita filed domestic violence complaints on each other. Dominic was arrested in 1980 for resisting arrest and was placed on probation for a year. According to Anita, Dominic always threatened her and said he had a gun, which understandably made her nervous. When she reported this to his probation officer, nothing was done in response. She was essentially told it was her word against his. After a few years of violent outbursts and alleged verbal and physical abuse on her and her children, Anita decided enough was enough. 2 months before they were to be married, Anita broke off the engagement. She left Dominic and moved her children into her parents' home. When Anita broke up with Dominic, his drinking intensified, and he became obsessed with trying to get back into her good graces. He tried to call her every day and sent her flowers, but by May of 1986, Anita put a stop to it. She explained to Dominic that the relationship they had was gone, as she was already seeing someone else. Despite her shooting down his advances, Dominic continued to harass her and started to harbor resentment toward her family, specifically her parents. Dominic didn't think his alleged behavior was the reason for Anita's sudden departure. He felt her parents were influencing her since they didn't find him to be a good fit for their daughter. He convinced himself that they were the problem, not him. Dominic spent his days plotting how he would get back at Anita. Per the owners of his local bar, Shooters, Dominic would show up at 7 a.m. when they opened and drink at least 10 drinks before 11 a.m. He spoke to the bartenders about his disdain for Anita's parents and how he just wanted to get back at her. He didn't want to kill her, but he wanted to hurt her emotionally. He made the statement, "Maybe I should just blow them away." The bartender basically told him to stop talking like that because it was crazy. They thought he was just a sad, drunk man who needed to vent. But on June 10, 1986, that all changed. Dominic went to Shooters around 1 a.m., where it was reported he drank several drinks, played Sad Song Say So Much by Elton John, and made threats against his ex, Anita. Around an hour later, he left but didn't return home. Instead, he stopped by the Artsner residence. Dominic stood outside of the home and banged on the sliding glass door, which led to Anita's bedroom. He continued to hit the door until Anita woke up and pulled back the curtain. He begged her to come talk to him, but she refused. Anita threatened to call the police if he didn't leave, so Dominic left. But just a short time later, Dominic returned, but this time he was armed. Before knocking on the door, Dominic cut the phone lines on the outside of the house. He then knocked violently on all of the doors and windows, attempting to get someone's attention. Raymond tried to call the police, but the call could not be completed. So instead, he grabbed his shotgun and went outside to confront Dominic by the garage. Dominic smelled of alcohol and staggered as he approached Raymond. Raymond warned him to leave the property, but before he could say anything further, Dominic raised his gun and shot him in the face. With Raymond incapacitated, Dominic broke into the home where he terrorized the other residents. Anita was able to escape with her daughter, but Martha sadly did not. Dominic shot Martha 4 times, with 3 of the shots hitting her in the chest. As Anita made it to the neighbor's house, she heard the shots ring out behind her. Authorities rushed to the scene, where Raymond was alive but critical. Martha had succumbed to her injuries, and Dominic was nowhere to be found. Dominic left behind his Corvette due to a smoking battery. Rather than risk being caught, he took off on foot. Thankfully, the sheriff's office had a canine unit on scene that quickly found Dominic, who was arrested without issue. Raymond was rushed to the hospital, where he was able to confirm the identity of the shooter before he too died from his injuries. The following day, Dominic was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, and by July 16th, he was indicted by the grand jury in Pasco County. Dominic's trial began in 1987, where the defense argued Dominic didn't have the mental state to premeditate the murders due to voluntary intoxication. Based on his past alcoholism, the defense stated Dominic's level of intoxication made it impossible for him to think clearly enough to plan the crime. They believed it was impulsive, fueled by his drinking, depression, and emotional distress caused by his separation from Anita. Based on this assumption, the defense claimed Dominic was not fully culpable for the murders. However, the defense called no witnesses to the stand to back their claims. The prosecution contended that the shootings were premeditated and brought several witnesses to support this claim. The first was Anita herself. Anita explained to the jury that she had had enough of Dominick's temper and detailed many graphic events that she and her children endured while living with him. She alleged he threw her son against a wall and smacked her a few times. The final straw was when he kicked in a locked bedroom door and came at her with a knife. Anita detailed that months before her parents' murder, she went to Dominick's house to break up with him officially. But when she tried to leave, he hit her in the head, almost knocking her out. She walked through the garage when she heard a gun cocked behind her head. When she turned around, he pointed it in her face. The two argued, and per Anita, Dominic eventually tied her to the bed, handcuffed her, placed a noose around her neck, and taped her mouth shut. He tried to scare her by saying he murdered his own son, but thankfully he was lying. Anita said that eventually he untied her, and the two slept together before he let her drive home. She stated that as long as he had that loaded gun, she did whatever he asked that night. In addition to Anita, bartenders were also brought on the stand to testify to the amount of alcohol Dominic consumed and the threats he made against Anita and her parents. According to bartenders on staff, Dominic expressed that he'd like to kill her parents in front of her. After hearing both sides, the jury dismissed on September 18, 1987, and reconvened on September 22nd. Dominic was found guilty of both counts against him. On September 9, 1987, he was sentenced. For the murder of Raymond, he received life in prison, while for the murder of Martha, he received the death penalty. Dominic was transferred to the Union Correctional Institution in Ryford, Florida. While in prison, he attempted to appeal his sentence many times. On October 11, 1992, the Florida Supreme Court rejected his direct appeal against his death sentence. On April 8, 1993, he made a second appeal to the Florida Supreme Court, which was ultimately turned down. On June 29, 2000, the Florida Supreme Court dismissed his appeal against his death sentence again. On July 14, 2006, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals denied his request. While he continued to try to overturn his sentence, something unexpected happened to Dominic. In 2011, the daughter he unknowingly fathered accidentally discovered he was her biological father. The woman's mother made the admission to her, and initially, the woman said she was hurt and angry, but eventually found relief in knowing who her father was. She started a relationship with her father while he was on death row. The woman claimed she didn't know how to describe how it made her feel to discover she was the daughter of a murderer. But after sitting and talking with him, she grew to feel sorry for her father. Through him, she learned about his life and family she had never met, and even allowed him to meet her daughter as well. According to Dominic's daughter, the two had a lot of talks about his issues with alcohol and drugs. He claimed that due to his addictions, he doesn't fully remember the night of the murders. Besides her father, she also developed a relationship with her half-brother. Dominic's relatives raised Dominic III. At the time of his father's arrest, he was only 6 years old and struggled to understand what was happening. Because of this, he had a lot of trouble in school and was bullied for his father's crimes. Much like his father, Dominic III developed a short temper and eventually turned to drugs and alcohol. He started committing crimes in the early 2000s, charged with burglary, obscene phone calls, and probation violations. On June 22, 2026, Dominic III pleaded guilty to felony charges for false imprisonment and battery on his girlfriend. He was sentenced to 46 months in prison, the same prison where his father was set to be executed. On June 26, 2026, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed Dominic's death warrant, scheduling his execution for July 28, 2026. By this time, Dominic was 80 years old and the oldest inmate on Florida's death row. Due to his age and the age of several other scheduled executions in the state, brought forth many concerns. How old is too old to execute someone? Advocates against capital punishment called out Florida for signing off on these execution orders. They claimed executing the elderly was deemed cruel and unusual punishment, since those being executed were frail inmates, who were prone to die naturally in prison anyway. Governor DeSantis stated in an interview that he found no joy in authorizing the executions, and claimed the pandemic delayed many of these executions by years, creating a backlog that needed to be addressed. while some alluded that the issue was due to the prolonged appellate processes and systematic problems with the death penalty that caused delays not only in the path of justice, but indirectly perpetuated the increasing number of the elderly death row population who waited decades for their sentences to be carried out. On July 8, 2026, Dominic's lawyers tried one more time to spare his life by seeking a motion of stay. In this motion, they argued that Dominic was too old and ill to be put to death, citing many health concerns such as heart problems, poor kidney function, enlarged prostate, arthritis, and degenerative disc disease. They stated he had difficulties hearing, seeing, and walking, requiring guard escorts to help him in and out of the showers. The motion stated that executing someone in this state was cruel and unusual punishment, and given the rapid rate of executions the state was carrying out, they believed executing Dominic might impact the welfare of the corrections staff in charge of these operations. On July 9th, the Florida Court of Appeals denied the request. Then on July 24th, the Florida Supreme Court dismissed the request to put off the execution. In a last-ditch effort, Dominic's counsel, alongside the counsel of another man, James Duckett, who was set to be executed on the same date, filed a joint lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Florida on July 24th. Both lawyers sought to overturn their execution dates. In the lawsuit, they claimed scheduling both executions on the same day could potentially constitute cruel and unusual punishment, since it might cause pain or suffering and violate the offender's Eighth Amendment right. In addition to pain and suffering, it was believed that having a double execution increased the risk of error, and the staff may not be equipped to carry out 2 executions on the same day. The lawsuit was rejected, and the case was taken further to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which was also denied on July 26th. With appeals exhausted, Dominic's execution proceeded. On July 27th, he received a final visit from his daughter. Then, on July 28th, he woke up at 4:45 a.m. and received his final meal of eggplant parmesan, garlic bread, a salad, and a Pepsi. That afternoon, he was led to the death chamber, where he was strapped to a gurney. In his final statement, Dominic apologized to his family and the family of the victims, stating he never meant to do what he did 40 years ago. At 6:13 p.m., Dominic was put to death by lethal injection. The Artsner family released a statement to the media, stating 40 years of sleepless nights, missed birthdays, and lost conversations. The execution of Dominic signaled the conclusion of a chapter in their lives, even though it couldn't erase the pain they suffered from the loss of Raymond and Martha. Dominic and James Duckett became the first double execution in the state of Florida since 1976, and Dominic became the oldest person to be executed in the state. Raymond and Martha Artzner were laid to rest in Meadow Lawn Memorial Gardens in Newport Richey, Florida. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, so leave them below and we can chat about this case. If you found this video to be informative, please consider giving the video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you want more from me. And lastly, if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. I apologize for how long it took me to get this one out to you all. I started researching one case and realized I needed a bit more time with it. So I switched gears and continued to research that case in addition to working on this one simultaneously. So hopefully I will have that script ready to go before I know it, and that should be the next upload. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate you all. I hope you have an amazing week ahead of you because you deserve it. But for now, we must part ways. So stay safe out there, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.